Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of JourneyCast.
Another one.
Episode 20. My name's Levi, and this is my
I'm
host.
Alicia.
And today we're joined by Candice Meier.
What took so long? 20? Jeez.
Finally, right?
I remember the first one, but that's because I'm a little partial to the first one.
Right, yeah. You've had a few relatives
Bit
on
of a fan of
the
Spencer.
show. Yes.
Yeah, we like him too.
Yeah, the other day I was like, wait, we should have Candice. Obviously, you should have Candice on, of course.
I was excited too because you're a talker and it'll be nice.
Well, and I was on the way here, I was thinking, okay, I need to make sure I don't talk so much.
You're trying to limit yourself.
No, don't worry about that.
Thanks, no
This
judgment
is not
here.
the short video
No
interview
judgment.
where we've only got a certain amount of time. Yeah, Candice, you were out at Whispering Pines as well this summer.
Yes.
This has been kind of a theme for the past few episodes.
Yes.
A lot of Whispering Pines people. How was that?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I have been wanting to go out there for some time. I've had several friends who have gone out there and have said, "Oh, you should really volunteer for a week, or you should really come out for a night, or see, so much great stuff happening." I'm like, I'd love to, but with my job, I'm typically very busy in the summertime, and so it just would never work out, and so I'm cutting back in my job. And so one of the first things that I did, because my son really wanted to work out there. So I talked to Denver about how can I get involved too? Like, what are the dates and all that? And I checked my schedule and it worked out that there were quite a few dates that I could actually be out there.
Awesome.
And so I was super, super excited about it. And at first it was just going to be for 1 week or maybe a week and a half. And then it just worked out to most of the time.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad, because I love what I do, and I've always felt very fulfilled from it. And in recent years, it hasn't been, there's been something lacking. So I'm exhausted by the end of the summer with my job, but in the past, I've always felt so fulfilled. So it's totally worth it. This year, I was super, super busy, but most of the time was out at camp, and I felt so exhausted by the end, but so fulfilled.
Right.
And I was like, yes, I miss that feeling. I miss feeling that yes, I was doing a lot. Yes, it was draining, but what the end result, everything that came from it was just, it made it worth it. It was so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I feel like it's kind of misleading when people say this, that when you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes. Yes.
That's super not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some people that are like, oh, you'll work harder than you ever have before, which is it depends what you're doing. If you're the one running the business, then but if you find what you love to do, then you're going to be, you're still going to be tired. There's still going to be busy seasons, but you're going to be like, that was worth it.
Yeah. I actually, and I've said this too, when I love what I do and when I'm working with people that I know they value and appreciate the work. I don't need thank you so much, or you were so awesome, or whatever. I just see, just because I work with couples and doing their weddings and that kind of stuff. When we have planning meetings, when that bride says to me, I feel so much less stress now. That to me, I'm like, that's what I want to hear. I want to know.
You did that for me.
Yeah, oh, thank you.
For real. Well,
that's always my goal.
Everything just seems overwhelming because you have to care about everything, and you think you have to buy all these things you'll be stuck with the rest of your life, right? For real.
Yeah,
and you just happen to have a storehouse of all these things. You're like, what do you like? What do you want to put together?
What am I going to do with all these lanterns?
Exactly. And a lot of them think that they're going to be able to sell, but it's you have to have
spend
people.
The next year on Marketplace trying to bargain with people, and then you don't get what you want for it.
That's exactly
Everyone's got their archways in their backyard.
Yeah.
The people across the street from us still have theirs in their backyard. I don't know if that's because they want it there, or if they just can't sell it.
There's some couples that plan that, right? It's going to be a garden piece, but
Yeah. And that's the thing. I work with all kinds, the ones that want to DIY everything, but they just need somebody there to kind of facilitate it. And those that want me to do far more. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I'm doing for you, as long as afterwards you Like
your goal is not to get praise.
Exactly. I know that I made a difference.
Yeah.
And what I did helped you.
Because then it's not a waste of your time.
No, because see, when I was planning my wedding a minute ago, 27 years ago, I didn't have any support. I didn't have family to support.
Was that what got you into it?
Yes. Yeah. And it was because of that, I never wanted another bride to feel that way, the way that I felt. Right. When that's your driving force, then it's not that you're not working. You're actually working harder because when you see, then it pushes you to go that extra mile. And when I have couples where it feels like I'm their hired employee, it's harder then because it's like, but I'm not your employee. You're my client, you know? Yeah. And so out at camp, I was constantly getting that. It was like anywhere that there was like something that needed to be done or a gap that needed to be filled, like I just was eager to help out wherever. And I was grateful to be able to have those moments where I felt like, because there were times when like I brought my laptop to do work into the staff area where like the kids would come and like have their chill time. And then sure enough, within 5 or 10 minutes, somebody's sitting down. Can I talk to you about something? And we close the laptop up and put it, but like, I never regretted those moments. Like I was never thinking, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this work done. Were there times when I thought and prayed like, God, you're going to have to help me because I've got this wedding coming up and I feel less prepared than what I usually am when I'm in my office back at home and I can focus totally on this. But I know what I'm doing here is what you wanted me to do. Right. So I know you're going to take care of all that stuff. And he did. Yeah. And so I just, it was
especially
amazing.
if it's something he has called you to, right?
Yeah.
Like if it's something that like you wanted to do to feel good about yourself or something, right? Then like, you know, but your intentions were in the right place.
Yeah, to help. Yep.
So we have a fun topic for you today.
Okay.
But before we get started on that, maybe it is fun to talk about all the people you're related to. Oh. So Candice,
let's see here.
Candice has given birth to many of the people who help make this run. I don't know what we would do without your family. So several of your kids are youth leaders and some are in youth. Some have now been on our podcast. You've got some son-in-laws.
And you know what?
Now.
We might as well promote it too. There has been how many marriages now? In
4 marriages and an engagement out of our youth group in the last 3 years.
And your daughters are involved in 3 of those?
Yep. Yeah. So Alicia and Spencer and Braden and Caitlin. And now we've got Hannah and Michael. And then Grace, who was wonderful walking her dog out the building, which I would like to see. Got a new puppy. I want to get the puppy on the podcast. And Ben, who was recently on a podcast. But I also want to take a minute to talk about this. Ben looked different when I saw him yesterday.
Yes.
And he looks different than he did on the podcast. And I was like, this is new. I'm like,
and that look is causing him to act different. Can I just say?
Oh, really?
Oh, Ben! The amount of times that boy has looked in the mirror, like, because we have a hall mirror right by our door. And so when you come out of the living room, you see that mirror. When you walk down the house, you see that mirror. When you come in the house, you see that mirror. And Ben looks in that mirror every second. And he's...
So what did you do?
I'm sorry, Ben, if this is embarrassing.
I'm not sorry. You asked for it. You know.
What did you do?
I permed his hair.
Yeah. And mulleted him.
And mullet, yeah.
He's got like...
Yeah. But see, he wasn't really willing to go the extreme mullet, what you see.
Right, like the shaved sides.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a little cut though, isn't it?
Oh, well, you see it more now with the
shorter,
perm.
but it's not like it's not like a fade.
Yeah, you see it more with it. But you know what he asked me? He texted me today and I'm like, why are you texting during school? He asked me, do you know how to do a fade?
Oh no.
He wants to go more. Ben, so I sent him pictures. I'm like,
do you?
I said, do you want this or do you want this? Because this is fade. And he's like, maybe not. Maybe we'll just take a little more off the sides. So actually, he's getting a lot more.
This is a perfect inlet to what we're talking about. Things that I wish I knew when I was a teenager. It's kind of funny the way that we dressed when we were teens and stuff, right? Like I am very thankful that the internet was just kind of like starting to become like social media was starting to become a thing by the time I was like in college, to date myself. But like I don't have those super embarrassing videos that 14-year-olds make now and put on the internet.
There was a time before the internet.
Be quiet.
Oh, stop it.
we're gonna beat you up. But like, aren't you thankful that that's out on the internet? I don't know.
Oh,
my friends 100%. And I did really stupid stuff where like we thought we were so cool. Yeah. That could have been immortalized online. Yeah. I don't know.
There's some stupid stuff I did that did get immortalized, but not to the extreme.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
You have home videos.
No, like videos we made for youth. You know.
Oh, those are actually solid though. Yeah. We still watch some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're some of them are a combination of cringe and funny.
Yeah.
Some of them are like still hold up to being funny, and some of them are like, why did we think that was funny?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But mullets, right? I mean, when I don't know, like before me, mullets were cool, and then by the time I came around, everyone was like,
before me.
That's like, they're like, that's so embarrassing. You're like, oh, you had a mullet as a kid, ha ha ha. And now they're doing it on purpose.
And for us, it was like poodle perms, like the tight perms where you looked like a poodle. And because my hair is so fine and thin, like it really took. Like I didn't have heavier hair where it would kind of like relax a little bit and look more natural. And I thought I was working it. I thought that it looked great.
Oh, you probably were even then. Or like how we all like tweezed our eyebrows to be almost nothing. Yes. And like mom jeans, that was horrifying when I was growing up. I'm like, I was like, I never want to see these ever again. And now it's back and people are trying to convince me to buy them. You know what? I did buy a pair. I finally fell into it. But like they're so tight that I can barely breathe in them and I hate them. I'm like, I look stupid.
And I felt that way about the lower rise until I actually tried them. I'm like, oh, this isn't so bad.
I can breathe.
Yeah. They're not as low as some of the low rise that are out there, but yeah.
Okay. But things that we wish we knew when we were a teenager. I wonder if even part of it is like, those things don't really matter. You think like, if you don't have that outfit, that haircut, those weird shaped eyebrows, those really thick eyebrows these days.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, right? Because as you grow up, you just like people mature, right? And you start to surround yourself with, because you get to choose who you surround yourself with after high school. Yeah. You don't get to choose that when you're in high school. Yeah. Really. I mean, for most of your day, right? Yeah. So yeah, you can get bullied and stuff still. And so like to have like a mental health state that is not like deteriorating, it's like almost like you're forced into this place of I need to conform. Yeah. And like I mean, I was homeschooled, so I don't know how crazy it was.
I just found that out actually.
Is that news
yesterday? I did not know.
So yesterday,
I never would have guessed. You are so socialized. Like I never would have guessed. Yeah, like
high functioning.
I honestly just found that out. I never would have guessed.
There was someone, I'm not going to say who. There was someone I met recently, and I had to ask if they were homeschooled. You know who that? Yeah.
Yeah.
And they weren't, because it was just like it was like
sure seemed like they were.
But it seemed like they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're a homeschooler and you're listening to this podcast, it's great to be socialized.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no judgment.
No,
like,
because
I did homeschool like the older two girls for a little bit because we knew we were going to be leaving Toronto. We didn't know where we were going. We just knew that we were going to be leaving. And so I didn't want them to also, because we're in a big church with lots of kids their age, plus I have a large family, lots of cousins for them and everything. And so we knew there was going to be a lot of big changes. So I thought, get them enrolled in school. They do a couple, and then uproot them from that too.
Right.
So
homeschooler was just a better transition.
It was a better, but it was never a long-term thing. But I have friends who have done it, and it's come a long way. Like because now there's like, they take their kids and did like science fairs with other homeschool families and, field trips and stuff like that. So it's pretty great, but you have to be responsible with it for sure.
Our PE was on Fridays. Like it wasn't every day.
Yeah.
What did you do?
We would go down to the local YMCA for an hour.
Oh, that sounds kind of fun, actually.
It does.
Yeah. But it was just...
Like I was picturing just jumping jacks in your like pajamas at home.
No.
And then, here comes the homeschoolers.
But it was very basic. It was like, let's play dodgeball for an hour. Let's play floor hockey for an hour.
Your sister.
And is it just two of you?
No, there was other homeschool kids.
There was okay, because I had to ask too.
No.
I had to ask too.
Danielle, I don't know if she ever went to that actually. But me and a friend of mine, we'd go down and there was at least probably usually 5 other kids that would be there too. And then a person from the YMCA staff that would run the program. So yeah, high functioning. That's hilarious.
But you know what's coming back to that? One thing that I wish I knew when I was in high school was, and if you think about it, if all kids knew that they could and should pick who they're going to hang out with.
Right.
What a different world. What a different experience high school would be. Because I came from this background based on my family experience. I was extremely eager to please everybody, whether it was adults,
that's a hard
teachers,
thing to deal with.
and then also kids. Yeah. So when I came out of high school, I was like, I had such a great experience because I could go to the cafeteria and I could sit at a lot of different tables because, in the cafeteria, there's different groups.
Right. Yeah.
I could sit at a lot of different tables. I've
heard of this term before.
You don't know this.
Oh, sorry. That's the place where we all went and had lunch.
Okay, so there was a time where I would finish my schoolwork early, and then I would go and take the city bus to Hat High to hang out with my friends.
Oh, that's so sad. That's why he's high functioning. He still went to school. He just wasn't registered.
So I did get a few times I got to go to the cafeteria.
Oh, no. Wow.
No, honestly, quickly though, honestly, having a youth group like the one here at Hillcrest, huge difference. Because I got to hang around people, right? So if I didn't have that, probably wouldn't be as high functioning.
Yeah.
But
Hillcrest Youth. There's a plug.
There's a great
send
promo.
Send all your homeschool kids
kid
here.
acting weird?
Social awkwardness.
Bring him here. We'll whip him into shape.
We'll make them high functioning.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Anyways.
Yeah, no, I think that when I look back though, it wasn't healthy. But it wasn't healthy because I was trying to please everybody. So no matter what group I was with, it was almost like a different personality, right? I would become a different.
What mask am I going to wear here?
Exactly. Yeah. And so when you're constantly just trying to please everybody, you're really not getting filled. No. It's one of those things you could be in this room full of people and still feel so alone. There could be a lot of people who knew me but not really know me that well because I didn't really even know myself.
We kind of talked about this even with our dating episode we did. You're making yourself into the person that is acceptable to this group or to these people. And so then you're like, okay, now I have to put on this show to be this person when I'm around these people. And that can be exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things and I was just sharing this yesterday, actually, in the same conversation about homeschool. My husband was called to go to Bible college because he was called to be a pastor. I was called to Bible college because God was literally calling me out from everything that I was comfortable with and putting me in this environment where I knew nobody. But he wanted me in this place where I could get to know him because I didn't even know him.
Right.
And because I didn't know him, I didn't know who I was in him or what any of that meant. And so, but see, growing up in the church and the structure that I was brought up in, it was very much a surface, that pleasing thing, and nobody really knows what's going on behind the scenes because you give this appropriate image based on who you're with. And so I knew how to act like a Christian, but I didn't know how to be Christ-like. And so I went there and I was like, wait, people are wearing jeans to church. We're supposed to dress like this. We're supposed to wear this, You
were very legalistic in your faith.
Very. Yeah. I knew all kinds of scripture verses. I knew all all of that.
You had them memorized, stuff. But you didn't have them in your heart.
Yeah. So when I started having children and we started talking about dating, one of the first things was, he or she needs to have a relationship with Christ. I don't want to know that they go to church. Yeah, I don't want to know that they go to church, because I knew if you could go to church and still not know Christ, because I was that person, right? And so going to Bible college, really, I was getting good grades, but the biggest thing that I learned was what it meant to be Christ-like, what it meant to actually have this relationship, and seeing it lived out in these people that, where I came from, these people would not be seen as Christians because they're very almost hippie.
Yeah. They're not following all these laws and rules that your church had. Yeah.
And you know what? It's the same denomination.
Yeah.
It was the same, it was just being the difference between East and West. And Toronto is very Americanized too.
Right.
And churches in America are very different. Pastors in America are seen a lot more as when there's in times of crisis, you'll see on the news, there'll be a reputable pastor that's brought in. And there's pastors who are reputable pastors that are brought in to pray for this and to pray for that. It's different in the States than in Canada. And so Toronto, being so close to that border, was very Americanized as well. So when I came out here, and it was very relational and chilled and relaxed, and I was like, a couple months
in church?
Yeah, a couple months in, I was praying, God, you've got to give me a spiritual reason for leaving, because I can't drop out of Bible college. My parents will kill me if I dropped out. But this, I don't know this. I can't do this. These people are so real. I'm used to that Sunday Christian thing. And these, here I have to do it every day. And I can't do it every day because I'm living with these people. We're eating meals together in the cafeteria. Bible college has a cafeteria too.
Wow,
so.
Really?
We go to church together. We go to school together. It's too much. I didn't know how to actually live it daily.
Because you were still trying to put on a facade 24/7.
Oh, that would be hard.
It was so hard. It was so hard.
Burn out quick.
Yep. And I remember one night it was our co-ed devotions, because the girls often did devotions together and the boys did, and then twice a week we did it co-ed. So we were in the chapel for that. And I remember everybody was kind of leaving, filing out, and I went up to the front, to the altar there. And I just got down on my knees and I just started praying and crying. And this is what I'm saying, I'm having this real heart-to-heart with God, saying, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this kind of thing. Give me a reason that will justify me leaving here and going back home to that comfort zone, to what I know.
Right.
And he showed me my husband, and he said, I've given you a new start. This is what I want with you and from you. But you keep pushing all of it away. So just be open to learning something new, And that's when it all started. And that was around November, and I started obviously in September. And so it was a game changer, because then when I moved back home after I was done, people were like, what did it do to you? What about, you're so different.
Did you get brainwashed?
Yeah. But it was.
No, you brainwashed me. They unbrainwashed me.
I just didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know. Now what?
Because you're coming back to all these friends that you were hanging out with.
Yes,
and
but
then
I'm
you're
different.
I don't want this anymore.
Yes, exactly. I was all of that, and it's not that suddenly they were bad and now I'm good. It's
right. And I think that's a hard thing for people to get, right?
Yeah.
Who you surround yourself with, because even besides the facade thing, if that wasn't a problem, who you surround yourself with actually impacts
100%.
Your personality.
100%.
And impacts the choices you make.
Yeah. And that's what I wish I knew when I was a teen.
This one girl I went out with, I won't say who, but when I went out, there was a period where she was just very judgmental towards everyone.
Yeah.
And I think it might have been out of, you feel bad about yourself, so you need to put others down to feel good about yourself, right? I think that's a bit of what it was. But it was enough, and I was spending enough time with her, that it actually started affecting me.
Yeah.
I started judging people. And I had a couple friends one time. I'll even say it, my close friend Matt, he was like, hey, just, you're kind of being judgmental about this. Because we were talking about something. I'm like, oh, no, I'm just that's kind of what I think about that situation. He's like, yeah, but you're
it like it is.
Yeah, you're coming off.
I'm speaking my truth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I love that.
But he's like, it's you're kind of coming off a bit judgmental in this situation. Just so you know. So I was like, oh, okay. And it's that balance of like, how do you be in the world but not of the world?
Exactly.
Right? Like that's a hard thing to do.
Exactly.
But you can't be in the world unless you have to be in the world, but you need those people around you that are also supporting you and your beliefs and supporting you in your faith. Like it can't just be 100% all your friends who like aren't on the same page as you.
Right.
You know, like, cause then where's your support?
Right.
You know, where's your church?
I sort of wonder if this happens to like everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where it's just part of like our identity, figuring out who we are, who we want to be, how this works out, how our faith works in with our life, works in with, and our desire to belong. Because I like, even for myself, junior high, I mean, I wanted to fit in at school. And so at school, I would like swear and be whatever.
Yeah.
But then when I was at church, I was very, very good.
Yeah.
But I distinctively remember the first time I accidentally, when it like crossed over and I swore at church and someone caught me and I was like, oh, and that was a wake up call in my own. Cause I don't know that I consciously was like, I'm going to be this here and I'm going to be this here.
Yeah.
But like there was all of a sudden a carryover where I had to make a decision of like who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do.
Yeah. And that's the reality of it. Right. And so, but for so long, and even now crossing over into the parenthood thing, I have seen a lot of parents that will, because it is that rite of passage, it is this journey that we all kind of go on. And so because we've all been on these journeys and discovered things, whatever, a lot of times parents will be like, oh, it's a phase. They're just figuring this out. They're just yes, and in some cases it is. But one of the things that I've come to value about my walk with God and my dependency on Him, which came from that moment at Bible college, is understanding that like, okay, I can't do this without you, God. I don't know who I am without you. And so as He's taught me, and even though I had a lot of younger siblings and I was very responsible, like I did a lot of babysitting of them. So I felt very equipped when it came to, I wanted a big family. I knew that growing up. Then I started having children and I was at this new place in my life where I'm figuring out who I am in Christ and everything. And I realized like, God, I want to raise them to love you. I want to raise them to have a relationship with you. It's not enough that I know how to change a diaper, how to feed, how to, comfort them when they're crying or whatever. Like, then what? Like, where do they go from there? It's not enough to just say, oh yeah, that's right. I went through that too. You'll figure it out. We need to walk with our young people. We need to be helping them and saying like, okay, we got to tweak this. You got to check in with God regularly. You got to, because one of my kids, well, it was Alicia. She had this best friend from like grade 1. Like when she started in school, they became fast friends. And as they hit the teen years, they would have these moments in their lives where they were on 2 different journeys. And Alicia went to church and this other young lady, really, I love her like a daughter, but she would go on and off. And so for Alicia, there were times when she would come to me and be very like not sure of how do I still like, I can't hang around her. Like, so, and we'd have these real talks about still loving this person, but then keeping there needs to be a time where you have this distance so that it doesn't impact you and change who you are and who you're supposed to be, but always let her know that she can come, like you have not turned away from her. You've just chosen not to participate with her in certain things. And so I didn't necessarily tell Alicia what that all looks like and how to do that, but just say, here's what's going to need to happen. Now you figure out what that means to you. Yeah. And so it's those kinds of journeys that like, it's important for us as parents to help our young people out. And so that carried over into the way that I spoke at camp too. There was a lot of that same stuff. Like it was important for me that I allowed them to get to know a little bit of not just who I am today, but who I was so that they could understand and relate. And
there's a few stories of a lot of kids being able to relate to you because of your vulnerability, right?
Yes, exactly. And one young girl had said to me, and it just touched me, that she had said, when I came here, I just wanted to get away from my family because she had a very similar background to what I had. And she's like, I just thought that this would be a fun week where I could not be Like I could not feel like I'm hated and not feel like I'm unloved, but I could just be here and have fun. And so I was going to go into like all the church stuff. I was just going to not pay attention to it. And then on the first night when you shared a little bit about your family, like I started listening and she's like, you changed my whole perspective. And so, and I said to her, well, now just think when you get to my age, you'll be able to help somebody else who's feeling the way you are right now. Yeah. So it's not enough that you just say, oh, somebody gets what and this person helped me and I feel this way. I feel good now. That's great. But now what are you going to do with it?
Right.
Right? Like, so that's our responsibility as well. It's kind of
like, like you having that experience with your wedding and now you wanting to help others, right? It's like
Exactly.
You had this experience as a kid and you want to help others through their struggles. And so you helped her and now she can go and she can help other people too.
And so that's what we would talk about that on the Friday, because Thursday nights, the session is always like more like emotional, we found. And so prayers, Fridays, exactly. So Fridays, because everybody's kind of getting ready to go home, it's like, okay, where do we go now?
Yeah.
So now it's important, not that because you've had this great encounter with God and you had a really great week at camp, so then you go back home and you shut everybody out. Now you have to go back home and say, okay, how am I who am I going to really be close to? Who am I going to realize, okay, I need to like not have as much of this kind of influence. How am I going to have
friends with to try and influence them in the right way, but not let them influence you?
Who am I going to hang out with that's going to help me grow? And I'm going to help them grow. And one of those things was talking about getting into a youth group that would help you along those ways too. Doesn't mean that everybody in every youth group is exactly where they need to be in their walk with God.
No.
It's actually the opposite. And that's why you need youth group, because chances are everybody is like struggling with something.
You're trying to help each other.
Exactly.
You're on the same journey.
Yeah. And the leaders were on those. And the leaders were too, right? So now you guys essentially as leaders do what I do as a parent. And that's like, okay, we've been there. Like I might not have been on the same journey as every kid that I encounter, but in some way we can relate to this feeling or this feeling. And here's how God helped me through it.
Right.
So I recommend you ask God how he can help you through it, and kind of give a little bit of the tools and then let them go to work. We're not telling people how to fix all of their problems, but rather just equipping them.
Well, yeah, because that's not God's goal. Right. Is if we could just give us an instruction list of, hey, here you go, Candice.
Yeah.
Here's your 5 steps to freedom.
Yep.
See you in heaven when you show that. You know, like,
and I think that's why the Bible's written the way that it is. The Bible doesn't have, because people are like, oh, the Bible doesn't talk about smoking. The Bible doesn't talk about this specifically. You know what I mean? Yeah, like the Bible doesn't talk about all the specifics. But I have read through the Bible. Because you're going to get the specifics through a relationship with Jesus. Yeah. And I've read through the Bible multiple times throughout my life. And every time I read through it, I get something new and different out of it based on where I'm at in my life. Yeah. That's the beauty of the Bible, because God didn't give us something that's like, do this, don't do this, do this, don't. But he gave us this instruction manual that is so precise in things. And then we've got this Holy Spirit who he will make it personal to us.
Yeah, it's that relationship part where it's like, hey, this is how I want you to apply this.
Yeah, but absolutely. Are we willing to use it?
Yes.
So there's a theme here that I want to pick up on just a little bit. We're talking about this is wisdom. So like we're talking to teenagers today who are listening, teenagers, if you're listening to this, be willing to listen to wisdom.
Yes.
Because I think there's just something really bizarre where everyone growing up has this tendency to want to just figure everything out the hard way, or I'll learn it oh, my parents said that, I'm not doing that, or do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But as a parent, your parents typically are actually trying to teach you wisdom. Your pastors or youth leaders are actually trying to point you towards wisdom, but will you take that?
And we get stuff wrong. Right. At times, right? And so, but then that's where it comes in, where we think, oh, they got something wrong, so therefore everything,
I can't trust them.
Everything they say must be wrong. It's like, no. Like that's not the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find like a mentor or find somebody who is not your peer, your same age, who, right, wants to influence you and whatever, or like isn't the internet. Please don't go to the internet for advice, right? Like find some real people. And like, I don't know, I'm thinking about this, but when I think I was in high school, there was this theme for a while where people were sharing their testimonies, and I heard the same testimony from different people over and over and over and over. And it was all these peers that I had been looking up to before who had kind of graduated out, and they were saying, I left youth group, I got really into partying, I got really into alcohol, and it really messed up my life, and now I've come back to God. And the same, like they said over and over and over and over. I remember sitting in a pew one day and I was like, I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I was just like, this is where that leads. All these people I respected and admired went and did the same thing. They're all saying, don't do it. Yeah. I'm like, why are we all doing it? Yeah. So I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's...
And don't surround yourself with people that are going to make that a temptation for you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's 100% it. And like one of my kids had said like, and I think I mentioned this to you once before, like jokingly, they'd said like, oh, you got lucky with us because we didn't like party and drink and do all of this, right? And do all of these things and everything. And I was like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah.
We didn't raise you to value those things, but we also did give you other things that you could enjoy and find value in.
You put in the work.
That, But then, you know what, with what you're saying, they had to choose that too, right? So like your parents, your spiritual mentors, your pastor, your youth leaders, like we can give you guidance and tools essentially, but then you have to make that choice, right? And we had this, and I really loved, you know, my role out at camp was I was cook sometimes, and I was camp mom sometimes, and I was speaker sometimes. But one of the things that I really valued was these times when like the young people, the camp counselors, would come and ask me for advice. And we had some really great like rap sessions, based from those one-on-one conversations. And then there'd be somebody who would hear, and then they'd ask a question. And so then we'd end up with these big group sessions on topics that were so profound. And I'm like, who are you guys? Like, you guys are like, this is insane how hungry you guys are for stuff that I wish I was hungry for at your age. I wish I was this hungry to know these kinds of things at your age, and I wasn't so caught up in, am I going to be married? Who am I going to marry? How many kids am I going to, what kind of job am I going to have? Those are all great things, but like, if I was hungry for the things of God and who like, and how that would make me the woman of God that he wants me to be. So then all of those other things will work out. Yep. But if I'm focused first on who I'm supposed to be in God, I would have a lot easier time ironing out all of those other things. But because I didn't know who I was in God, it was a rocky road along that way, right?
There's such a hunger right now.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I feel super old saying it, but I feel like things are getting tougher and tougher in our society, right? And it's just pushing people to the edge of having to decide what their life is going to look like. And kids are having to decide that at a younger, and they're having these deeper thoughts at a younger age. And I know how old that makes me sound, but like it's the truth. Like that was not...
That's one of the things that I said out there. I said, I think your generation has it the hardest when it comes to figuring out who you are, because social media has put all of this stuff out there like, oh, I want to be like that person. I want to be, but who that person is isn't really who they are. It's just what they've put out there on the internet.
They've created a personality.
And so, and then they get bashed for that.
Like these questions that they're asking were not things anyone in youth group, when I was in youth group, were discussing. Like it was just like, hey, let's talk about God. And some guys would get just uncomfortable. Be like, I mean, I agree with that, but you know, well, I'll figure it out. It was just like, let's just kind of shrug it off for now. And then years later, it bites you in the butt. Like it doesn't, because you never drew your line in the sand of what you were going to do and weren't going to do with your life. And the choices you're going to make, you know.
It was popular, like not popular, but like one of the common topics was like sex, marriage, dating, you know, those basics, right? And you don't have sex until you're married, and you don't date or marry anybody that is unequally yoked, which means they're not a Christian. But there's so many other,
not talking about eggs, by the way.
There's so many other like gray areas within that where all that meat is that helps you with that. And so one of the topics that we talked about was submission and it started from like wives submitting to husbands. But by the end, when we then also had a subject about like finding the one, that came into like, we then implemented that submission as in not submitting to like your husband, but rather God. And then that spiritual authority over you. Because like what you were talking about is that wisdom in finding it and pulling from what you were saying, we're going to get it wrong. We're going to make mistakes. But you know what? If you submit to those that are over you, your teachers, your pastor, your parents, the government, they're going to get it wrong. But if you are submitting to the authority that God has put over you, you're covered. It's like an umbrella, right? Like, so when it's raining out, sometimes that umbrella, you know, when it's really windy and the umbrella kind of bends the other way or whatever. But like if you're under that covering, you don't get wet. It's when you choose to step out of it. And so, but when you're under that covering, even if something goes wrong, you're covered from something worse happening. Because sometimes God allows us to go through situations where it's not about making the right call. It's about the process to get there. And so, and I've talked about that like sometimes my husband and I are at different sides of a situation, and he thinks we need to do one thing and I think we should do the other. And at the end of the day, I will say to him, you're the covering. You're the head of this house. You're the leader. And what that does is, even if he's wrong, we're covered. So there might be some fallback from that. But if we went with what I wanted and I was right, I'm opening us up. We are opening us up for far greater consequences because we didn't do it the way God designed it, the way God wants it to be. But if we do it the way that my husband did, that even if it was wrong, not that he's always wrong and I'm always right, but a lot of times he is right. But and then we raised our children, same thing. Like, I'm not a perfect parent. I am going to make, but if you understand that within that you're covered, then the consequences of that fallout are way less.
What's important to maybe note to you, because everyone always jumps to the next conclusion, is, well, what if your spouse is abusive? So in this scenario, Lanny's not asking you to do terrible things. He's not abusing you. He's not controlling over you.
Yes, absolutely. In the Lord. And see, and it comes to parents too, because I came from an abusive home. And so that resonates with me. And so when we were talking about finding the one for you, and how do you know if this person is the one of the things that I had said was, seek a spiritual mentor. Whether it is your parents, if you've got God-fearing parents, go to them. Make sure you're talking. If you don't, God will send a spiritual man, and just be sensitive to somebody that like is God-fearing, not just goes to church, but God-fearing, so that they can give you that guidance and direction and then help. But like, again, you have to choose that, right? You have to choose to be obedient to that. And they will always, it's in the Lord. So anybody that is over me and has given me an instruction or whatever, as long as it's in the Lord, I need to do that, and I need to be obedient to that in some way, shape, or form, because that's my leader.
I was talking with someone the other day, and he was talking about someone he had gone out with, and how some friends of his were like, "Hey, man, like, we're getting some weird vibes from this. Like, but it was like some weird red flags. Yeah, this is probably not it. Like." But it's helpful to have someone on the outside who, you know, like it could be your parents, it could be a mentor, it could be a youth leader. Just be like, hey, this is kind of hard because you're so close to this situation, but I want you to understand what I'm seeing here, and I just want to let you know that I'm seeing that because I care about you.
Exactly.
And not because I want to ruin your life, or I want you to live the life I want you to like. I'm just trying to give you advice, you know? And so like, I think that's so important to have those sort of people. And even friends, like, you know, it's sometimes great to have someone who's not a peer be your mentor, but if you can have those friends too, who can be real with you and be honest with you and be like, hey, I know this probably hurts to hear or is hard to hear, but like, I just want to say this or whatever, you know, like.
And you know, the value of that when it's coming, I had 2 young women that I had mentored. One of them had been in our young adults group, and the other one, I had not had any kind of special connection with her at all. Some of her friends I knew better than I knew her. Same church, but because it was a larger church, I knew of her. I didn't necessarily know her. And she had come up to me, and there was an interaction, whatever, and she had felt like God was bringing us into this kind of relationship where it wasn't based on friendship. It was based on, I see in you certain spiritual aspects, and I believe after praying about it and whatever, like God has called me, because we're very similar in nature, that where the path that I was on and the stuff that I had already walked through, she was kind of coming up to that.
So give her some advice.
Exactly. And I wasn't her friend. Right. So it was deeper than that. And so because I wasn't her friend, then she could receive it a little bit better and a little bit clearer than if it was a friend, you know, because sometimes those emotions can kind of cross over and make it a little bit more challenging. But yeah, that, and I wish I had that when I was growing up. I wish I knew the value of understanding authority, understanding leadership, and like not just authority, but godly authority and God-given authority. And even those who are not, who don't fear the Lord, like teachers at school or the government, how I should still respect them. Because what that's done for me now is in learning all of that and in following that path, I sowed those seeds into where I'm at now in my life. So now, because of my respect for authority and that I didn't, there were times when I get frustrated and upset and whatever, but because of the seeds that I sowed then, like now I see there are young people who respect me even though they didn't necessarily know me. And there were campers that had come who maybe because of the role that I played, they might have been more standoffish, but because of that respect level and because I couldn't reach them where they were at because I was there too, it allowed them to then let down those guards a little bit too, because I was there once, right? So I'm not going to allow you to do certain things. I'm not going to allow you to say certain things. I'm not, so I wasn't just, they didn't walk all over me or anything, but I did feel respected, even though you could tell they were very hardened from whatever path they had been on. And so it was just beautiful then to see, like, as the week went on, these walls starting to come down, and then just that pinnacle on like the Thursday nights kind of thing where they'd have these encounters then. Because up until that point, it's almost like I'm stepping in as like a representative of God's authority. And you haven't seen that yet, maybe, for some of them. They don't know what that necessarily looks like. So let's walk this journey. Because that's what Christ did, right? Like, he didn't just be some unobtainable person, this super celebrity that like was untouchable. He wanted everybody. He wanted to have a relationship and be approachable.
He would explain it.
Absolutely.
In a very deep and
absolutely
interesting way. But he wouldn't be like, you should know this already.
And it frustrated some of the other leaders of the churches because they're like, well, that's...
I mean, he would throw some things back in their face, like
he was good at that.
He would,
didn't always seem very nice.
He would answer their questions with more questions.
Yes, he could read them. He could read that room, right?
Well, you didn't even really try and figure this out before you came to talk to me.
Exactly.
So we're gonna have some fun with this.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, I just having been at the camp and even experiencing it, and I've shared. Post camp, because in trying to connect, and I'd shared some of my story, and some of that has to do with my biological father who left when I was 6 months old, and I'd shared this, but I had to be at this point in my life, this place in my life where God has healed me from most. I'm not going to say all, because I don't. He's always unpacking stuff, right, in our lives. But I had to be at this point in my life where I'm not bitter about it. I'm not holding anything against anybody who's done anything against me. But I've had to work through that. That's not an easy thing to do. And part of that was my biological father. And because I'd had this hard time connecting with God, my father, Because, you know, I'd always recognize him as God, my creator.
Yeah.
And I'd get jealous when I see people singing about God the Father and just talking about, oh, God's my daddy and everything. And I get this lump in my stomach that was just like, ugh, you know, like, don't connect him like that. Like, he's so much more than a dad. You know what I mean? Because in my mind, dads aren't that hot, right? Like, not that great, you know? And so in sharing that part of my journey and like, as a testimony, it was like 2 weeks after camp that my biological father actually found me on Facebook.
Crazy.
And has been chatting. And I'm like, this is so crazy. Cause like
is that your first contact with him?
So no, I didn't know that my stepfather, who then stepped in when I was a baby. Like I've only known, when I said daddy, it was to him.
Right.
When I was 9 years old, my mom said, one morning when I was getting ready for school, she said, oh, by the way, Brian's not your real dad. You've got a real dad and he's in town now and he wants to meet you. So we're going out for dinner tonight.
Casually
just like that.
Right.
And I remember, the only thing that I remember about that night was sitting across from this man at dinner. And I have no idea of who he is, but he looks exactly like my sister. So I knew he had to be my dad.
Yeah.
And my stepfather the next morning, and I had been my stepfather's princess. Like I was daddy's little girl because he really wanted a daughter, and him and my mom only had sons. And the next morning he said, you know, our relationship will never be the same. And I was like,
whoa,
why?
What?
And he said, because now you know I'm not your dad. So you're never going to look at me the same. And I'm like, that's not true. You are my dad. I don't know who that guy is.
You're making it that way.
But in his mind, that was it. And so then after that is when the abuse started and everything. And so that crushed me because here I'd been 9 years of this. And then, so now these two men who had the choice to either love me or reject me made the choice to reject me. And I was like, that influenced the guys that I dated, the guys that I, you know, and what I received and that influenced my ability to submit to my husband when he, as a leader, and trust him. Because if these two men who are supposed to love me chose not to.
Yeah.
Whoa, yeah.
And so then the next time that I saw him was when I was 18 and graduating. He just showed up. My mom had told him there was a whole thing there too. Like I cried, not happy tears. I cried because like I was so overwhelmed. Yeah. And then I didn't see him again until like about 20. I was pregnant with Alicia, so about 21 years old. And that was the last time that I saw him. So I've not seen him since I was 21. And I'm not going to say how old I am now. But like not seen him, not heard from him. And when I saw him, then it was the wedding. My wedding and my sister's wedding were around the same time. He gave a call me card. And this is back in the day when like, if you wanted to do long distance, you had to dial like 10. And if you were on a landline, your phone bill automatically gets charged. If you go to payphone or like, then you dial this other number and that person gets billed. So he gave me this card that if you ever want to call me, because he actually lived in Alberta and I was living in Toronto. And he said, if you ever want to call me, here's this card. But he was still putting it in my court. I was like, you know, if you want to take the charges for a long distance card or a long distance call, then call me.
Yeah.
Right.
You're the dad.
Yeah.
You're the one that made the choice to leave. So I never called him. Yeah. I never did.
Yeah.
And it took me a while and it's only like, I would say the last 5 years since moving out here. And there were some moments and some stuff where God started to show me that I had to work through that now is the time that he's like, I've worked through other stuff and now it's brought me to this point where he's like, I need you to recognize you're my daughter and I'm your dad.
Wow.
And so I remember this one moment at camp when I was feeling so tired and sore because it was a week when I was cooking and I was extremely exhausted. And I'm like, God, I know my husband will do anything for his daughters. He will bend over backwards and give whatever they need. He's not going to do everything for them so that they don't learn it, but he will help them so that they can grow and be the best that they can be. If you're my dad, I'm going to need you to help me give, like I need you as my dad right now. That's what I need. I need that dad. Like if I had a biological dad that I could count on and I would call him and be like, Dad, I can't do this. And I would need him to speak into me, like all these things that a dad knows about his daughter. You know what I mean? And so God did that. And like, cause I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this whole week of this, cause I'm so physically exhausted from, and just over and over again, he was doing stuff and showing me that like, he's always been there as my dad. I just didn't know what it looked like to acknowledge that. So now I have since said, God, I will never not call you my dad. I will never be at that place. I will never allow myself to ever be at that place where I don't see you as my dad. And I think in that admission, he then said, now you're ready, and brought my biological dad back into the picture. And I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know why. I don't know what it's going to, maybe there'll be some kind of relationship there. Maybe there won't be. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because it's not going to change who God is to me now. Right. Yep. So even at this point in my life, he's still showing me and teaching me things and growing me. And I'm like, wow, I love this. And so then I know that in 20 years' time, I'm going to look back and be like, man, I wish I knew then.
Yes, what I know now. Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But at the end of the day, all it comes down to is just being open. I wish I knew when I was a teenager how valuable being open to learning and trusting and seeking, that valuable information. Because teens can tend to be very emotional based. And
I think you can get burnt a lot too.
Yeah.
Like you start trusting the wrong people.
Yes.
And you get hurt.
Yeah.
And so then all these walls come up. You're like, nope, not trusting anyone anymore ever again.
But you know what?
You have to build trust with people.
But see, because of what I went through, it was actually the opposite for me. I wasn't emotional based, and I had actually become very hardened. So I wasn't willing to trust anybody. Yeah. It was like, I'm going to be what everybody needs me to be, but nobody's going to penetrate this barrier. Right. And so now I've kind of found the best of both worlds. It's like, okay, emotions are so good. And now that I've kind of figured out how to navigate emotions, logic I also value too, because then it helps you understand, okay, reading people and reading like what's wise and not making emotional based decisions, but following it up, backing it up with the word. Like at the end of the day, that's our ultimate logic, right? The truth there in the word.
Don't be reactive to situations.
Yes, absolutely. And so when you can combine the two things, then you've actually reached like that sweet spot of like, okay, this is how we're going to make. So when my kids come to me and there's like, they've found a spot on them that wasn't there the day before or whatever, like you can, our emotions can be like, oh my gosh, is it cancer? Is it cancer? But if we allow ourselves to speak truth and speak, which that truth is rooted in like the logic of the word and the truth of the word, right? Because funny enough, like I didn't share much about this at camp, but a few days before I started, I spoke first at the mother and daughter camp, and like literally 2 days before, I found out that I had had skin cancer, a tumor on my face that they had determined was this, and so it was going to have to be removed. And anytime you hear that C word, right, then panic, and it's like, but I had to rely on that God. Yeah. I know you have put me in this place I had to speak to those emotions, speak truth, right?
Oh, it's hard.
And it is.
I'm a fixator on problems. I'm like, here it is. And I'm like figuring stuff out online. And
and I had to condition myself not to.
Yeah.
Because at first I didn't know, when they told me like the term for it, I Googled it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And I'm like, God, this is what you've put in front of me for this moment. I know this is happening, but I'm not going to let the devil and my thoughts to run away and my emotions to run away and fears to run away and
control you.
Yeah. I'm going to focus on what you've put in front of me. There's a reason for this. I'm going to trust you to work it all out. But see, our emotions causes, and see, a lot of times we say like, oh, in your anger, don't sin. Yes, that's true. We shouldn't sin when we're angry. But any emotion that we have to be careful not to sin.
Take a minute.
Yes, because you can feel like this ultimate love for somebody, and it could cause you to sin with them, right? You could feel betrayed. You could feel violated. You could feel all of these things.
I need to get back at this person.
Yeah. Yes, you can feel all of these emotions. God gives us these emotions, but he also gives us what we need to be able to handle them. And so God was doing so much for me personally while I'm giving. And it was such a beautiful thing. That's why I'm like,
if you hadn't relied on God in that moment and you chose to fixate instead, how easy would that be to just pull you out of the game?
Absolutely. And it could have, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there were moments, and that's when I relied on my husband, and I relied on a few other people that I have like to pray with me and pray for me and everything like that. I'm like, okay, they've got it. Because at camp too, there were times when we were feeling that spiritual battle there. And I would text people that I knew, can you please pray? Because I could see counselors are feeling worn, and I know that, and I'm feeling worn too. And so, and when I had people coming back with like, got it. In our Bible study group, we prayed for you today. And it was just like, like those are the reason why he gives us the church. That's why he gives us a youth group. That's why he gives us leadership. That's why he gives us this bigger family than just the one that we're born into. Because every text that I got back saying, praying for you today, and pray, like it strengthened me. Because there are times when you're so tired of the battle that you feel like you can't do it. And so but when I was young, I didn't think that I could be real like that with people. Because in a lot of our minds when we were growing up, it was like, altar call. No. You only go up to the altar call if you're really sinning, and everybody's going to judge you. And
gossip about you now.
Absolutely. But now it's like, I'll go up there if I just need, because I mean, there's a reason why it's up there, right? And like the pastor or the leader speak from this, and it's, when you take that step of like, God, I'm going to step out from my comfort zone because I really need an answer from you. So I'm going to take that step of faith, and I'm just going to go and I'm going to ask for prayer. I'm going to be obedient when the leader or whoever speaking says, if you want prayer for this, or if you need prayer for it, I'm going to take that step. And when you do that, God says, okay, because you did that, I'm going to bless you with this. I'm going to give you this answer. I'm going to help you with this. I'm going to but he's waiting for us to surrender that our control.
He wants to build trust with you.
Yeah.
Because what more valuable thing in a relationship than a trusting relationship where you know
Absolutely.
You can rely, that friend that you have that you just know they're going to make the right choice for you, and you don't have to think about it. Like that trust is what the relationship God wants to have with you. And if your relationship is just legalistic and
surface,
I understand what you're saying, so now I'm going to go figure it out on my own. When it's when it's surface, or when it's just, pretend, like these are all just like, that's just a fake relationship, and that's not what God wants. So he's not going to be in those things.
Right.
And so we have to learn to trust.
Yeah.
We just have to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think for me is the most valuable part in my relationship with God is learning how to trust him with new things and different things, and building that trust. Like that's going to bring you so much joy and fulfillment. And
one of the ways that I found was the easiest.
And you're not going to have to worry.
Yeah. The easiest way to build trust is to be trustworthy.
Yeah.
You don't trust because you know all the times you lie. You know all the times that you've deceived. Yeah. Like, and I've shared a lot through the years about my husband and the difference that relationship has made for me. One of the first things that shocked me about him was joking around. I'm like, oh, you're just lying. And he goes, no, I don't lie. I'm like, okay. Everybody lies. And he goes, no, I actively try not to lie. And so there were times when I would test him. And he wouldn't.
Try and slip him out.
Yeah, I would. And even with things like surprises, like if he's planning a surprise, now it'll be like, so did you get me something for my birthday? He won't say no. He'll be like, you're not supposed to ask me that question. Or something like that. Like he will get around it so that he's not actually but that was a shocker to me, because then what I realized was, well, if he could live a life of not lying,
then
I'm going to try and live
yeah.
one. Yeah. But I never knew that was possible. Like I literally, like, I'm not kidding. Like I just, we hear, I'd hear all of these things in church, but then I'd see something different from friends, from my home. So
it's something we talk about. But
so it's just
do.
like, okay, pastor can do that. That's how the pastor lives.
And you brought this up at the camp, and I think this was very helpful for the kids to hear that, like, even deception is still.
Yes.
Like, oh, well, technically, I technically I didn't say that.
I
didn't.
But
you were saying things.
I withheld information so you would believe what I wanted you to believe.
Yeah, that's deception. That's
I was just still
lying.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
I knew this would happen because I like talking to you so much and time goes by so quickly. But time is going by very quickly here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I know. See? And I really want to meet the dog that you brought.
Oh,
so
I can text her and tell her.
I'm motivated. But we always ask everybody, what's a piece of advice that you would give to a teenager who's listening to this today? Do you have any wisdom? We also usually ask for embarrassing stories, so you can choose whichever one you want.
Goodness. So a piece of advice.
Yeah.
Be confident in who you are, because you are exactly who God designed you to be. Doesn't mean you're perfect, but be confident in who you are and surround yourself with people who will bring out the best in you and that you can bring out the best in them, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
I love that.
There. Embarrassing stories.
Oh, yeah, she's going for it.
You should text Grace first, though, so she brings us dog.
Can we have the dog on the podcast?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll unlock the door here.
Special dog surprise. Yes.
Embarrassing story. Actually, it would have to come from like around that same time of like Bible college and stuff like that. When I think about the thoughts that I had when I was first getting to know everybody. And like, I remember the first time I saw girls wearing jeans and it was Sunday and I've got my long dress on and it is freezing cold outside. Because of course the year I moved out here, it snowed in September. I'm like, what is happening? And I was thinking, what kind of godless group is this? Jeans to church? Are you kidding me? And then at lunchtime, one of the young men.
Hillcrest?
No, this was at Bible college.
Oh,
this is at Bible college. One of the young men prayed for the food. He goes, "Thank you, Lord, for this food. Use it to our bodies. In Jesus' name, amen." I'm like, And and people just start going through the buffet line.
Oh, right.
In the cafeteria. And I'm like, no. You're going to say a proper prayer. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, that's not a prayer. And everybody's looking at me like, what was wrong with it? I'm like,
the weirdo?
No, you didn't bless the hands that prepared it. You didn't thank him you didn't thank him for providing it. You didn't ask him to nourish it to our bodies. And I'm like, it needs to be longer than that.
And everyone's looking at you like,
yeah. And they're looking at me like, what? It needs to be long. It needs, yeah. And then I was like, doesn't it? Shouldn't it be longer?
No, and it was so public.
It was, and I was so embarrassed because then I was like, why do I think like that? Why did I think that your prayer has to be a certain length of time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That was a goal for me when
spiritual.
When I was a kid, to pray as fast as possible.
My nephews do that.
Yeah.
They're really quick.
I think it's just...
God is great, God is good. Let us...
It's a boy thing because they're so hungry.
We just like to be efficient. So it's all about efficiency. And like, how can... My nephew's doing that right now too. Yeah. He'll rattle off a prayer very quickly.
Yeah. At least he's doing it.
He's doing it.
Like, you know.
There was a time too, I think he picked this up from church. We'd pray and then like he'll start clapping.
Oh, that's so cute.
So, because like at church, there's always praying and clapping. So he's like, he'll finish praying and then start clapping.
Yeah.
And we're like, so we just started clapping with him one day. Yeah. Amen.
Why not?
That's my controversial opinion, though. It's no one likes it, but I don't like the lame claps for Jesus. I don't like them. I don't have to like them. Where I was like, give it up for Jesus, but we're evangelical. I don't know. It's like everyone's like,
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't like that. No, I don't know.
No.
I think when it's forced.
Yeah.
It feels a bit weird.
Yeah. And that drives me crazy too. Like when I see that too, and it's like, come on. And when we sing songs where it's like talking about dancing and nobody's dancing, right? Like, I'm like, who are we kidding here?
Yeah.
We're not David.
There's a song about raising hands. I'm like, no, I have to.
Obligated.
Not obligated, but I'm like, if I'm going to sing this, I'm going to mean it.
Yeah,
Just stop singing for a
I don't
line.
have to sing it.
No, exactly. Yeah. I told her to bring him into the youth.
Good.
I think she's feeling
I want
like
this puppy to come in here.
Delivered.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we actually had done that even on Sunday too, about like there was a bridge in one of the songs too where we were like,
oh yeah, I could sing of your love forever. Yeah, I was like,
I feel like dancing. It's foolishness. I know. When the world, they will dance with joy like we're dancing. I was like, no.
Yeah, because I after singing that on Sunday, I was like, had it. Oh, here's the dog.
Tulip was on a live stream once before.
Oh, was she?
During COVID. Oh, this is the best. Grace, you are on the internet now.
There's the puppy.
Oh.
Hi, baby. Oh, there's a kisses.
So this is your dog, Grace?
Yeah, partially my dog.
Yeah.
This is a family dog.
Oh, the family dog?
Yes, because she had been wanting a dog for so long. So for her birthday.
If you're not watching the video version of this podcast, I encourage you to go to YouTube, search Journeycast, episode 20, and look at this wonderful dog.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Hello. What's the dog's name?
Atlas.
Yeah, so because she's wanted a dog for her birthday, we said, okay, we'll get a family dog. But you can name him and you can do like the training and stuff like that. So, and now we're going to Petland, Pet Value, Pet, whatever that is.
A pet store.
Yes, where you can bring the animals inside and let them pick out a toy.
You're not going to be able to hold him like that for long.
No. But we're thinking he's part coyote.
Cool.
His mom is full husky, but nobody could tell.
A husky.
Yeah.
So he's going to be dramatic.
Know. Yes.
Yeah.
He already is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. When I leave the room, he starts whining as it is. Yeah.
First time I took Emma in a store, she peed on the floor.
Yeah. Well, he'll do that too. He's used to pee mats. So I do find that like he won't just pee on like a bare floor, but he like when he peed in our bathroom, it was on the bath mat. So at least it was a mat. So it can't be too mad because he was born in a shelter, right? So they only train him on the mat.
Okay, we're gonna go now and play with the puppy. Thanks
Bye,
for
everyone.
listening.
Bye.
Thanks, Candice.